All right, for lab number 9, this is muscular strength and endurance, and this is a super straightforward lab. We're going to be in the strength lab, okay? So not our typical lab room, but with all the machines in it and the weights. This is just going to have 3 tests that you're going to be doing. You and your partner are going to be doing a 1 rep max leg press, a YMCA bench press test, and then the ACSM abdominal curl up test. So I'm going to go through those real quick. For the 1RM leg press, we do this because it's a bit safer than if we have you guys try to do a 1RM back squat. But this is for our lower body muscular strength. And the video on Blackboard takes you through how we use the machine, how we set it up, how you get into it, and all that good stuff. But there are instructions on here as well. Biggest thing for you guys to think about is the warm-up, because we never want to take somebody and throw them straight into the heaviest weight that we think they can lift. So we're going to start with between 50 to 70% of their anticipated max. And then that's really going to be dependent on how experienced they are. So if someone has a lot of experience with lifting, then maybe we start closer to 70. Whereas if they have no idea, then we definitely want to start that lower, right? When you increase the weight, you're going to use your own discretion, and you're going to increase the weight by, it says either 5.5, but 5 pounds to about 45 pounds using the weight stack. And then a big point here, the final weight successfully lifted with good form. So it has to be within good form to be a 1RM, right? And then you're going to fill out the table at the bottom for relative lower body strength. So relative lower body strength is going to be right here, weight pushed in pounds divided by body weight in pounds. So for this one, we are using body weight in pounds rather than our typical kilograms that we use. So keep that in mind when you are making that calculation. We're doing that because we're using pounds on the machine, so we need to keep it consistent. For muscular endurance, we're using the YMCA bench press and the abdominal curl-ups. The YMCA bench is pretty standardized. It's different for males and females, so pay attention to that. There will be a setup for males and then a setup for females, so you guys won't have to readjust weights on the bar. For males, that is an 80-pound bar, and for females, that is a 35-pound bar. 80-pound bar, meaning the 45-pound bar plus the weights added. And that pace is set to 30 reps per minute, which is a 60 BPM metronome. So that can get kind of confusing. Whichever way you want to think about it is fine. 30 reps per minute would be like click, click, or you can think about the 60 BPM metronome. That's how I recommend setting it up, where it's down, up with every click, 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 right? And that's what you can see in the video I talk about. Same thing for females as far as pace. And this test is over when they either can no longer complete a rep, right? Muscular failure. Or they can complete reps, but just not within the cadence. They can't keep up with the metronome, and that needs to be within 2 reps, okay? So if they can't keep up with the metronome for 2 reps, then they fail it, and the test is over. For muscular endurance, this is the curl-up test. Similar in the idea that it is to a metronome, but this is to a 40 beats per minute metronome. So every click is a movement. One click is up, the next click is down, so there's a slight pause in the reps. The feet are going to be flat on the floor, supine position, knees are at 90 degrees, and then the arms are at the sides. There are pieces of tape on the blue mats, and ideally you're going from one piece of tape to the other, but different arm lengths and different body shapes, that isn't always perfect. So really the biggest thing is to get the shoulder blades completely up off the ground and then in full contact with the ground when you're done. With each rep, sorry. Metronome is set, slow controlled reps, of course. And then the subject is going to perform as many curl-ups as possible. They cannot pause, so same idea with ending the test if they cannot keep up with the cadence. And this test is over if they reach 75 reps or the cadence is broken. So on the YMCA bench, the person can get as many as possible until failure. And on the muscular endurance, the curl up test, this one does have a cap. So this one is over at 75 reps. There are two pictures on your lab report as well, in case you have questions. I'm going to mention real quick, because I forgot to say, on the YMCA bench, we always use a spotter. So even though these weights are relatively light, and I'm not particularly worried about anybody tearing a pec or it falling on somebody's chest and crushing them, knock on wood, but we always want to have a spotter anytime we're doing some kind of compound movement, especially with a free weight like a barbell, to failure. So we absolutely will always have a spotter. For your results section, there will be a table on the board that's going to have 3 males and 3 females. So this will be made into 2 tables that look exactly like table 1 in the example results, just of course with different numbers. And then you will also need 4 bar graphs. In those 4 bar graphs, you're going to have a t-test for each of them. This is determining statistical significance. We've done this multiple times now. You'll get a p-value. Asterisks are necessary if it requires one, if that value is less than 0.05. Your figures are going to look exactly like this example for males and females. The only thing that's going to change is going to be, one is for 1RM, one is for average relative lower body strength. So if you look at the table, there's 1RM, which is just the weight lifted, and then relative lower body strength is that equation I mentioned earlier. So those are 2, and then your last 2 are for the YMCA bench press test and the curl up test. So I know it's written kind of odd in this way where it's almost confusing as to why there's only A, B, and C if there needs to be 4 graphs, but it's because those are both for repetitions and the other ones are not. So that's why it's written that way. But you will need 1 graph for 1RM, 1 graph for relative lower body strength, 1 graph for YMCA bench reps, and 1 graph for the curl up reps. And those need to be comparing males and females. Like I said, have the p-value, have the error bars with the standard deviations, and then asterisks if necessary. Discussion questions, there's a big table here, and from ACSM's textbook. How would the average male or female be categorized for muscular endurance? Look at the table, look at the rep counts that you got, look at the averages, right? And then answer these questions. Make sure you answer the entire thing. So how would they be categorized? Put the actual category label. Was there a significant difference between males and females? Use that p-value, okay? And explain that. Are you surprised? Explain your answer. That's big, okay? Explain your answer. Part 2 of that, or I guess question 2, explain the importance of keeping testing procedures consistent. So why does the YMCA have a set cadence? Why is there set weights for person to person? Why is there a set cadence for the curl up test? Why is there a set height you need to be up, right, off the ground? Why do we have those things? Then 3, give an example of when 1RM testing may not be suitable. Well, what alternative would you use? So think about populations that it may not be safe for. Think about maybe populations it would be suitable for, but there's specific scenarios. Like perhaps you have a football player who is coming off of a quad injury. So maybe we want to test their strength, but it's not realistic or safe to do that with a 1RM, right? That's just an example. And then come up with an alternative. In the bold here at the bottom, you see if there's not enough resistance on the leg press to get a 1RM, use the equation to estimate. So you'll use this equation. Percent 1RM is 102.78 minus 2.78 times repetitions. And then it has an example. This can be confusing if you aren't careful with how you read it, because the math gets kind of swapped around. But percent 1RM, that's what we are looking to find. So you'll take 102.78 minus 2.78 times reps. Repetitions, you just plug it in. So say that I got 8 repetitions at 495, which is the most that that machine allows. Then I'll plug in 8 for that number. So it would be 2.78 times 8, whatever that number is, subtracted from 102.78. Okay, lots of 8s in this example. But that's going to give me a percentage, or really it's just going to give me a number. And that's my percent 1RM. So what does that mean? That's telling me that 495 is that percentage of my estimated 1RM. So in the example math, they got 2 repetitions, and it says that, okay, that means that 495 is 97%, give or take, of their estimated 1 rep max, the true 1 rep max. So now we need to set that equal, find that percentage. So 495 equals 97%. To get to the final result, we need to divide 495 by that number, by the percentage, and then multiply that by 100, and that will tell us our 100% 1RM number, or what we would estimate to be the true 1 rep max. So in the example, that would be 509. Data collection sheet at the bottom. If you guys are doing this and you have more than 5 attempts for the 1RM, it's fine. Just write around it, right in the open space, add a box. I really don't mind. Okay, just make sure you have the data on there. YMCA number of reps, curl-ups number of reps. I think that covers everything. Just these 3 tests. It shouldn't take too long. A lot of time that it takes is just spent waiting for the leg press machine. So I'll talk about that in lab. But other than that, I don't think that this will have any issues with it.